I watched my mother's surgery get canceled because of me, because I was too critical to lose for one day. That's what my boss said. What he meant was, my time belonged to him. That moment, sitting in a cold hospital chair with a phone in one hand and her trembling fingers in the other, something in me cracked. And from that crack came a promise. If they wanted to treat me like I was irreplaceable, I'd show them exactly how dangerous that lie could be. The morning started in a hospital room thick with bleach and low murmurs, the kind of sterile quiet that makes you whisper even when no one's sleeping. My mother's hand was cool but steady in mine. She didn't speak much. Didn't need to. We'd done this drill before. White wristband, gray blankets, a clock that ticked too loud over beige wallpaper. The only thing that stood out was the thin red string wrapped around her wrist. One knot, one promise. She said it was for protection. Maybe it was. Outside, the city hummed like it always does, CTA buses dragging along Michigan Avenue, taxis honking half-heartedly. I should have been focused, should have been present. But my phone kept buzzing in my coat pocket, sharp vibrations like warning shots. I ignored the first one, the second. The third came with a text that froze my blood. Mark, if you're not on the release, it fails. Be a team player. Team player. That's what he said. Not, how's your mom? Not, can you check in later? Just a digital nudge toward guilt and control. Mark, my manager, loved the sound of control. Every word from him was wrapped in corporate velvet but carried the weight of a hammer. His last product launch tanked 2 years ago, and he'd been gripping onto this one like it was a life raft ever since. The problem? I was the raft. I didn't answer. Not right away. Just stared at the message. The kind that comes loaded with no question but all expectation. Across from me, Mom gave my hand a squeeze. She hadn't seen the message, but she saw the change in me. Don't, she said gently. Not now. I smiled. Or I tried to, but I could already hear the voice in my head, the team's stand-up echoing from earlier that week. Lauren, we'll need you on hand for the release. Just a few hours, max. I'd told them this week was blocked off. PTO, approved, documented. But with Mark, time off wasn't time off. It was a pending negotiation. The door slid open. A nurse poked her head in. Just a heads up, surgery might be delayed a few hours. Dr. Naylor's running behind. Mom just nodded, calm as ever. She always did this. Made things easier for everyone else. But I saw the worry blink behind her eyes. This wasn't cosmetic or routine. This was spinal, invasive. A 12-week recovery, minimum. Her surgeon had called it a delicate job, which, coming from a man in scrubs who spoke like a data analyst, meant high risk. I wanted to be the daughter she deserved today, fully present, steady. But instead, I walked out into the hallway and called Mark. I'm at the hospital. Silence. Then, Lauren, I don't have anyone else who can manage this escalation. We're going to lose client trust. This is make or break. I didn't scream. I didn't hang up. I just closed my eyes and said, then break it. I hung up before he could talk me down or spin it into some emotional appeal. Then I walked back into the room, sat down, and told Mom I was staying. Later, the delay stretched. Then it canceled. Something about a complication in a previous surgery. Rescheduled for 2 weeks out. The look on Mom's face wasn't anger or fear. It was disappointment laced with exhaustion. And in her patient portal, a $400 penalty fee for the rescheduling. Non-refundable. I'd rather you hold my hand than your phone, she said quietly, not looking up. That one hit harder than any meeting invite ever could. We left the hospital late, neon reflections bouncing off wet pavement as we drove down Lake Shore. That's when I caught sight of it. My own reflection in the passenger window. The red string she'd tied around my wrist months ago catching the light like a warning flare. I'd worn it out of habit. Now it felt like armor. That night, on the CTA Red Line, the world felt suspended between steel rails and sodium light. I watched the city blur past the glass, my hand resting near the window, that red string glowing faintly. And I made a decision. No more soft boundaries, no more half-kept PTO, no more Mark whispering urgency disguised as loyalty. Next time they try to move my time off, it won't be a favor, it'll be a fight. I didn't know yet how far I'd have to go to make them understand, or what lines they'd try to cross again. But one thing was certain. I was done being the point of failure in someone else's broken system. That string wasn't just a charm. It was a line in the sand, and I was ready to defend it. 2 weeks passed, and the rescheduled surgery loomed like a thundercloud. The new date blinked on my calendar in red. Carol S., 6:30 a.m., Northwestern Memorial. A fixed point. A line that wouldn't move. Or so I thought. We'd just wrapped a late afternoon sync, everyone drained and jittery from back-to-back meetings, when Mark slid into my DMs like a virus slipping through a firewall. "Hey, can we shift your PTO by 3 days? Just until the release clears." "No." "Hi." "No. How's your mom?" Just another incision made with a keyboard. I stared at the message, my jaw locked. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I opened Outlook, clicked on my calendar, and looked at the PTO block I'd carved out like a sacred ritual. It wasn't the first time, wasn't even the 5th. It had become a habit. His, not mine. The first time had come with flowers and apologies. "We just need your eyes on this one piece." The second time it was, "You're the only one who really understands the risk modeling." Then came the third and fourth. Now it was just assumed. Like my time was public property with restricted access. I closed the message, walked to the break room, poured myself a cup of that burnt coffee sludge we all pretended was drinkable. When I walked back, the team chat had already lit up. David dropped a meme, a skeleton in front of a laptop. "Real leaders don't need time off." Jess followed with, "Wait, what's PTO again?" I forced a smiley, the fake kind that doesn't touch your eyes. It was all a joke to them, this cycle of cancel request rebook cancel. But to me, it wasn't a glitch. It was a pattern. A story on repeat. One where I was always the one folding, making space, being the responsible one. I clicked into the client documentation, the master service agreement buried 3 folders deep. That's where I found it, in sterile legal font, hiding in plain sight. Team stability is required. No single point of failure. Repeated PTO cancellations may result in client penalty fees and loss of confidence in program stability. That part never made it into our stand-ups. I sat back and reread the clause 3 times. Then I clicked into my saved Zoom links and requested a one-on-one with Olivia. Olivia was the client rep. Mid-50s, straight-talking, sharp as cut glass. She used to lead burnouts like mine before she moved to the other side of the table. People said she was reasonable, but what they really meant was she didn't buy excuses. The next morning, we met. "Mark keeps sliding my PTO," I said. "I've canceled 3 times. My mom's surgery is next week. I can't keep doing this." Olivia leaned back, arms crossed. "Has coverage been documented?" "Yes. David's covering mainline escalations. Jess has the checklist. It's all in Confluence." She nodded. "Then your absence doesn't equal instability. If it does, that's not a PTO problem. That's a leadership failure." She let the silence hang for a beat. "Check your MSA again. We require coverage, not martyrdom." That was the moment the thread snapped for good. When I logged off, I tied the red string on my wrist tighter, knot by knot, like I was weaving a boundary into my own skin. That afternoon, Mark called. Not a message this time. A direct line. "Just need you to be flexible, Lauren," he said, voice honey slick. "Keep this fluid and I'll make sure your rating doesn't suffer. You know I have your back." He didn't say, "I'll make sure your promotion survives." He didn't have to. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't throw the MSA in his face. I just said, "I've already made adjustments. My PTO is approved and coverage is documented." A pause. "I'm trying to meet you in the middle," he said. "I've been living in the middle, Mark. For 2 years. Silence again. Then the call ended with a clipped, "We'll talk later." I sat at my desk for a long time after that. My eyes drifted to the team chat. Jess had dropped another checklist update, color-coded and neat. David had added comments. Actual comments, not placeholders. We were ready. And I was done treating PTO like a favor they could trade. From now on, it was a contract, a boundary, not bravado. I used to think policy was something written to be broken, an abstract shield for people too afraid to say no outright. Then I started reading the fine print, not skimming, not trusting what people summarized in Slack threads. Reading it, every clause, every buried footnote, especially the ones Mark hoped I'd never bother with. It started with a quiet moment at 8:43 p.m., a time when most of my team had logged off and the digital noise softened into manageable static. I was staring at my calendar again, still bracing for another soft ask to move my PTO. The red string on my wrist was tight tonight. Something inside me clicked. I opened our MSA again, the same one Olivia referenced, and this time I didn't just search for keywords. I read like my job depended on it, like my sanity depended on it. And maybe, at that point, it did. The clause was short, bare, but not meaningless. No single point of failure shall be designed into the release process. If repeated vacation interference is required, coverage has not been sufficiently planned. Repeated PTO disruption may impact billing terms and breach continuity metrics. No single point of failure. Those 5 words hit me like a backdraft, because that's exactly what I had become. The point, the lever, the dam, the thing they couldn't afford to lose, but wouldn't protect either. A system that requires sacrifice to function is already broken. I didn't know if I felt angry or just awake, like I'd finally seen the wiring under the plaster, and it was frayed. The next morning, I looped Nina into a call. She was from legal, mid-30s, always composed, spoke like her words were redacted before they left her lips. She'd joined 6 months ago, and no one paid her much attention unless a lawsuit loomed. But she knew the documents. I sent her the clause. Asked for clarity. "This part," I said, highlighting it on the shared screen. "It doesn't say managers can override it. It says if coverage is in place and PTO gets blocked anyway, that's a risk." She nodded. "Correct. It's written to ensure team redundancy. If a person's absence halts a release, that's not the person's fault. It's a structural flaw." She scrolled down, scanning. If this clause is breached consistently, the client can reduce invoice payments by up to 12%, assuming a continuity issue is documented. That one stuck. So it wasn't just about time. It was about money. Every time Mark pulled me back in, he wasn't protecting the team. He was gambling with fee exposure, and if Olivia wanted to, she could push that button. I opened Slack, pinged Olivia privately. "Would you be willing to support a formal coverage plan for my next PTO?" She answered in under a minute. "Yes, as long as it's documented and signed. No surprises." So I built it. A real plan. Not just a verbal, "David's got it." Not just checkboxes floating in the void. A full doc. Who covered what? Where handoffs lived? What stopped if something broke? When I should be pinged? And more importantly, when I shouldn't. Jess helped me fill the gaps. David added notes. By Friday, we had it signed and uploaded into the coverage and continuity wiki Nina had just spun up. That same day, I got a message from Mark. "Can you meet for a quick sync? Want to walk through the next sprint plan?" I walked in expecting tension. Instead, he was calm. Too calm. "I saw the coverage doc," he said, nodding at his second monitor. "It's detailed." I waited. "I'm not here to fight," he continued. "Just think we should be careful with formalizing processes. Creates friction." "Or clarity," I said. He smiled. Thin. Hollow. "I get it, Lauren. You're drawing a line." I didn't answer. Because he wasn't wrong. I was. What he didn't know was that this line had backing now. Olivia. Nina. Even Ella from HR had dropped a comment on the wiki. Love the transparency here. That afternoon, I did something small but symbolic. I added a note to the bottom of the coverage doc. Rest supports continuity. Not a pause, just a different kind of motion. No one commented on it, but I didn't need them to. It was there. Later that night, on the red line again, I watched the city slide past in fractured light. I thought about all the times I'd told myself I was being a team player by shrinking my needs to fit their emergencies. I wasn't being a team player. I was being a stopgap, a patch, a walking liability disguised as loyalty. But the truth had been there the whole time, written in plain language. All I had to do was read it. It started with a ping. "Hey, can we move Lauren's time off?" Just those 8 words in a group chat I wasn't supposed to see. David had replied with a cautious, "We have the coverage plan documented," but the damage was already done. There it was again, that familiar itch behind my eyes. The slow simmer that started not in anger, but in recognition. They still didn't get it. So I built something. Not a policy, not a protest, just a tool. A quiet legal tripwire. I opened my work inbox, scrolled to the rules settings, and created a new automation. It was simple. If any message came in, email, chat, request, that mentioned canceling or changing my scheduled time off, it would automatically trigger a message. Not from me, from the system. A pre-approved message. Reviewed by Nina from legal. Filed with Ella from human resources. It read, "Per the approved paid time off and coverage policy, Lauren's upcoming leave has documented coverage. Shifting this absence introduces operational risk and may trigger client-side penalties. Please review continuity terms in the project agreement before requesting changes." No emotion, no blame, just policy. It wasn't written to scold. It was written to remind. I called it the auto reminder. Ella reviewed it and filed it officially under our internal process library. Olivia from the client side even asked for a copy, said she might share it as a best practice. That surprised me more than it should have. "We've lost 2 program managers this year," she told me quietly on a call later that week. "Both burned out. One quit mid-call. I don't blame them. Our systems aren't designed to protect people. They're designed to stretch them." She paused, then added, "You're not just protecting your time, Lauren. You're protecting the model." The model. Funny how it took me almost a decade in tech to realize that systems aren't neutral. They reward whatever behavior they were built around. Ours? It rewarded last-minute saves, quiet suffering, and unspoken sacrifice, which meant people like me, reliable, silent, capable, got pulled into its gears again and again. But I wasn't silent anymore. I had receipts. And now I had protection, too. The first time the auto reminder fired, it was a Wednesday. Mark had messaged Ella privately, asking if I could shift my time off by just one day, said it would help preserve momentum before the release. The system flagged the message and responded automatically. Ella replied to him publicly, 2 lines of ice. Lauren's time off is approved and covered. Per policy, we discourage manual overrides of documented continuity. Please respect it. I wasn't even in the room when it happened. By the time I saw the thread, it was already handled. And Mark? He went quiet. That same evening, David pinged me directly. I saw the auto reminder fire. It was beautiful. Can you show me how you set it up? I laughed for the first time in weeks. Sure, I said. I'll send you the template. Jess asked for it the next day. By the end of the week, there were 5 people in our program who had their own versions of the rule. We weren't loud. We weren't dramatic. We were just done being flexible in a system that punished firmness and rewarded chaos. I didn't preach. I didn't post about it on the company intranet. I just kept doing my job, quietly. Well, with boundaries so sharp they could cut glass. The best part? The client didn't blink. Not once. They didn't see reduced performance. They didn't question our readiness. Because we had the coverage in place. Because it was never about me being too essential. It was about them never planning beyond me. On Friday, Olivia dropped into our group check-in. Everyone was quiet, waiting for her feedback on the release prep. She spoke slowly, deliberately. We reviewed the continuity matrix. Everything looks tight. If we see another slip in this cycle, we'll flag it. But for now, well done. Then she turned her attention to me. Lauren, that auto reminder. I looked up. Smart, calm, effective. More of that, please. The call ended. No applause. No big moment. But I felt it. That invisible shift in the air. The kind that tells you something just tilted in your favor. That night on the train, I looked down at my wrist. The red string was still there. Still tight. Still holding. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to check my messages. Didn't worry what I'd find if I did. Because now, the system was working for me, not against me. Not because they changed, but because I did. It was strange, waking up and not checking Slack. No frantic scroll through overnight pings. No reviewing the latest build tickets over lukewarm coffee. Just the whir of the ceiling fan, a slice of light through the blinds, and a dull ache behind my eyes that told me I'd been grinding too long. Today wasn't PTO, not officially. It was a trial. A single day off the grid, pre-cleared and structured as a coverage test. One day to see if the system we'd built, the handoffs, the checklists, the ownership, could stand without me propping it up. I didn't sleep in. I didn't go to brunch. I didn't even change out of my work clothes. I just sat at my kitchen table with the train map open on my phone and a notepad beside me, like I needed a plan for how to not be online. My phone buzzed once, then went silent. The automation had already triggered its out-of-office cascade. Lauren is offline today as part of our team continuity exercise. Coverage owners, David, stand-ups, escalations, Jess, risk flagging, QA checklists. Contact escalation flow is posted on the team wiki. It felt too formal for a single day, but that was the point. I opened my laptop once, just once, to check the incident queue. It was empty. At 10:17 a.m., I closed it. That sound, the quiet click of the lid meeting the keyboard, felt louder than any argument I'd had with Mark. Louder than all the times I'd said yes when I should have said no. I left the apartment. No destination in mind. Just my bag, a notebook, and a stillness that felt like someone else's skin. Back at the office, or rather, in the virtual war room, David led the daily sync. I had trained him for this, though he never needed much help. He was steady, liked systems, trusted structure more than charisma. Jess ran the follow-ups. She'd started as an anxious junior analyst, afraid to unmute herself. Now she flagged risk items before I could even finish a sentence. I'd watched her grow checklist by checklist, turning anxiety into accuracy. At noon, I got a message from her, not in Slack, but a photo. It was a yellow sticky note, scribbled in black pen, stuck to the corner of her monitor. "Rest is part of continuity. You're teaching us the system." I stared at it for a long time. Then I smiled. Not a grin, not a burst of relief. Just a slow, earned smile that settled behind my eyes and didn't ask for permission. The rest of the day moved like water. I sat on a bench near the lake, watched two kids feed ducks with broken crackers, and let the wind push the noise out of my chest. I hadn't realized how much I was holding until I wasn't. At 3:14 p.m., Mark tried to call. I didn't answer. The automation fired again. "Today's absence is documented and covered. For urgent matters, contact assigned owners or refer to the wiki." He didn't call again. At 4:46 p.m., I got a message from Olivia, just one line. "So far no gaps. Keep holding the line." Holding the line. The phrase stuck with me. We always think holding the line means standing your ground, defending some trench, bracing against attack. But sometimes holding the line means stepping back, trusting that what you built can stand without you, and watching it do exactly that. When I got home, I didn't check in. Not once. I lit a candle, made tea the way my mom used to, mint, no sugar, and sat at the kitchen table doing nothing. It felt radical, almost illicit. When night came, I climbed into bed without that old tension pulling at my ribs, without wondering if I'd forgotten something critical, without fearing that my absence had left a hole someone else had to fill, because there was no hole, just a plan that worked. The next morning, I logged on at 8:02 a.m. Jess was already in the chat, typing out the morning status like she'd been doing it for years. David had flagged 2 minor issues, both resolved. No fire, no panic. Just a system. Working. I dropped a quiet, "Thanks for yesterday," into the group chat. Jess replied instantly, "We got this. You taught us how to run without burning out." And for the first time in this job, I believed that wasn't just flattery. It was the truth. When I tied the red string that morning, it didn't feel like armor anymore. It felt like a reminder, not of danger, but of value. My value. Not as the always-on fixer, but as someone who built something that lasted when she stepped away. The real test wasn't whether the team could function without me. The test was whether I could let them. And I had, and they had, and I wasn't going back. He waited until the Friday before my scheduled time off. That alone told me everything. Mark didn't escalate early. He didn't challenge the checklist. He didn't poke holes in the coverage plan Jess and David had updated twice since Monday. He waited until my calendar was locked, until the client had greenlit the schedule, until I'd begun packing to stay closer to the hospital for Mom's procedure. That's when the message came in. "Hey, quick thought. Can you just delay your time off by 2 days? Just until we push the release out the door. No lead up, no apology. Just a request dropped casually like it cost nothing. 2 days. That's how it always started. Not with a big demand, but with a just a day, just a few hours, just until we get past this bump. But this time, I didn't even need to respond. The system did it for me. Mark's message triggered the auto reminder I'd set weeks ago, and within 90 seconds, the following response landed in his inbox, and in the inboxes of Ella from Human Resources, Nina from Legal, and Olivia from the client team. Per the approved time off and coverage policy, Lauren's upcoming leave is documented and signed. Any adjustment may introduce client-side penalties and operational risk. Please refer to the continuity plan for escalation contacts. No fluff, no explanation, no room for spin. I watched the read receipts come in like quiet footsteps. Ella first, then Nina, then Olivia, and finally, Mark. He didn't reply, but I knew he saw it. You could feel the heat of his frustration even through the silence. 3 hours later, Ella sent a short message to him, CCing me. Lauren's time off has been approved and documented with assigned coverage. Please respect it. Olivia followed up 15 minutes later. Just a reminder, the client's continuity clause is active. Violations may affect contractual terms. Then Rebecca, from Finance, dropped a metric like a hammer. Also worth noting, shifting the release window now would incur a 12% overtime rate and a risk surcharge per clause, 8.2 in the budget agreement. The math did more damage than any argument I could have made. 12% on a 6-figure release window, additional fees for instability, and now 4 senior people backing my absence in writing. Mark had no cover left, and I hadn't lifted a finger. Later that day, he scheduled a check-in with me. I accepted, even though I didn't need to, even though I already knew what it would be. He appeared on camera with his usual war zone calm, neat, clipped, under control. "I'm not here to fight," he said, voice low. "Just want to talk like adults." I said nothing, just waited. He tapped his pen once, then again. His fingers twitched. Then he sighed. "I get it. Boundaries, policy, all that. But we both know real leadership is about stepping up when things are tight." My jaw tensed. "Real leadership," I said slowly, "is building a system that doesn't collapse when one person steps away." He looked at me, unreadable, then leaned back in his chair like he was trying to appear relaxed. "I'm not asking for a war," he said, "just asking for some flexibility." "You already got it," I said. "It's called coverage." He frowned. "This isn't personal, Lauren." But it was. It always had been. Because every time he framed my boundaries as inflexible, what he really meant was, I'm losing control. And people like Mark don't surrender control without trying to twist the story first. I didn't rise to it. I didn't apologize. I just stared at him until he finally said what I'd been waiting to hear. "I understand your time off is approved. I won't push it." That was the moment I knew the system had won. Not a scream, not a standoff. Just one man realizing his authority no longer overrode the rules. When the call ended, I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the light was soft and slanted. Late October always made the city look like it was holding its breath. My bag was already packed. Mom's surgery was in 3 days. I'd booked a small hotel near the hospital, nothing fancy, but close enough to be there when she woke up. I looked down at the red string on my wrist. Still tied. Still holding. But this time, it wasn't tied around just my wrist. It was wrapped around a whole system of documentation, names, timestamps, signatures, and silence that now spoke louder than anyone's panic. That night I got a message from David. "Mark tried to ping me during your block. I redirected him to the wiki." Then a second message. He didn't like it. And a third. But he didn't fight it either. Jess added a meme underneath. A castle with a tiny red flag flying over it, captioned, "Fort Lauren, now fortified." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was true. We'd built the wall, not to keep people out, but to keep the system up when someone stepped away. And now it was real. Not a theory, not a draft, not a favor, but policy. And the next time someone tried to cross that line, they'd have to climb over the consequences to do it. The first morning of my leave, I woke before the alarm. Not out of worry, habit mostly. Years of being available just in case didn't drain out overnight. I lay still, waiting for that old reflex to kick in. The pull toward the laptop, the urge to check Slack, to peek at the deployment calendar just for peace of mind. But it didn't come. Instead, I rolled over, stared at the ceiling of the quiet hotel room, and exhaled into the kind of silence I hadn't heard in years. No inbox, no updates, no pings, just the slow hum of the heater and the faint creak of someone else's footsteps in the hallway. The hospital was across the street. Mom's surgery was scheduled for tomorrow morning, first on the board. They told us check-in was at 5:15 a.m., which meant I needed to be ready before dawn. But today belonged to no one. I dressed slowly, found a coffee shop 3 blocks away, sipped herbal tea by the window, and watched the city move past. Delivery vans huffing along slick streets, nurses in clogs rushing toward their shifts, pigeons lifting in sudden gray spirals near the traffic light. I rode the red line for no reason. Southbound, then north again. No destination, just motion. My wrist rested against the cool window, the red string still snug, catching the morning light in quiet defiance. And for the first time since this fight began, I felt something unfamiliar. Not relief, not triumph. Calm. David sent a single message around noon. Not a question, just a note. All good. Jess nailed the escalation play. You were right to trust us. That was it. No drama, no fires. The system held. But of course, Mark couldn't. At 9:42 p.m., my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I didn't answer, but I saw the name. Mark. Then another. Then a text. Just checking. There's a release conflict. Might need to reshuffle the sequence. We'll loop in finance. It was bait. I knew the tactic. He'd tried it before. Trigger urgency, paint a vague crisis, get someone, anyone to flinch. But I didn't flinch, because reshuffling the release wasn't his call. Not unilaterally, not during protected leave, and any move like that would show up on the audit trail. I turned my phone over, face down. When I checked the next morning, everything had changed. Not the system, not the coverage, the audit. There it was, a time-stamped trail of edits to the deployment board. Made between 10:03 and 11:27 p.m., adjustments to test windows, new sequence proposals, no approvals, no signatures, just activity. Mark had pushed a plan change overnight, without clearance, without notifying Olivia. He must have thought it would go unnoticed. A stealth fix, a demonstration of his control, of what happens when Lauren's out and someone has to lead. But the system didn't forget. At 7:14 a.m., a compliance alert hit Olivia's inbox. Jess saw the flags first and looped in David. When I turned my phone back over, it was buzzing with quiet shock. David's message came first. We caught it. He edited the board without going through the continuity plan. Jess flagged it. Then Jess. I double-checked timestamps. He moved the release window by 12 hours and didn't notify finance. Audit logs are clean. And finally, Olivia. We've logged the deviation. Sit tight. I'll handle this. That was all she wrote, and she meant it. The release still went forward, but not the way Mark imagined. Jess and David rolled back his edits, restored the original sequencing, and ran the checklist like we'd practiced it. And it worked. No crashes, no red alerts, just clean, quiet execution. At 11:42 a.m., Olivia posted a single message in the stakeholder channel. Coverage plan was followed. Unauthorized changes created instability. Review pending. Short. Final. I stood by the hospital vending machine, sipping bad coffee from a paper cup while Mom slept just down the hall, her vitals steady, the worst behind us. And all I could think was how strange it felt not to be angry anymore. Not because I forgave him, because I didn't need to. He'd written his own outcome, in metadata and missed approvals, in empty calls and nighttime edits, in the space between just helping and can't let go. He made himself the risk, and the system saw it. When the red line took me back to the hotel that evening, I sat by the window, feet curled beneath me, watching the city pulse under sodium light. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a glitch in someone else's machine. I felt like part of the blueprint, not the lone protector, not the over-functioning fixer. Just another line in the structure. Holding. There were no raised voices, no accusations, no drama, just the sharp, clipped pace of a meeting that had already made up its mind. It was Monday morning, 9 a.m., and I was barely back from leave. My bag still unpacked, my mom still recovering 2 floors above ground at Northwestern, her hand still warm when I left her with a soft promise. Just a short call. I'll be back by lunch. I didn't expect fireworks. I didn't want them. I just wanted the truth to breathe in a room that couldn't ignore it. And this room, this one was airtight. Mark joined 2 minutes late. That alone said everything. When he logged on, his camera was off. Everyone else's was on. Olivia led. She didn't clear her throat, didn't soften her tone. She simply opened the meeting with one question, short, cold, surgical. Why was the coverage plan ignored? No one spoke. She let the silence stretch. Then Nina, legal, leaned forward, her voice even, practiced, like she was reciting evidence from memory. Lauren's leave was pre-approved, documented, and supported with a signed continuity plan. The overnight edits made during her absence were not authorized. No escalation path was followed. No client contact was informed. Next came Rebecca from finance. Her words were less measured, not angry, just blunt. We calculated the cost impact. Late-night changes created a deviation that required retesting. That alone added nearly 12% in overtime fees. Additionally, we triggered exposure on the risk surcharge clause. Total delta, 11.6%. She didn't need to explain what that meant. Mark finally unmuted. It was a judgment call, he said, voice thin, rehearsed. I didn't think the window would hold. I was protecting delivery. He paused, waited for someone to nod. No one did. I assumed... He tried again. Olivia cut in. That's the problem. Her voice was low, but it carried. You assumed. You acted alone. You bypassed a continuity plan that was built, reviewed, and signed. She glanced down, probably at her notes. This isn't about malice. It's about instability. And from the client's standpoint, vacation isn't a perk. It's part of continuity. Ella from HR finally spoke, her voice calm but firm. The automation rule flagged your request. You received a clear policy reminder. You ignored it. Lauren's time off is protected under both internal policy and contractual terms. That protection is enforceable. Mark was quiet. For once, he didn't reach for his usual weapons. No veiled flattery, no half apologies, no pivots to team spirit or we're all in this together. He knew what this was now. Not a confrontation, a verdict. Olivia closed her notebook with a soft snap. We've made our recommendation to the steering group. This is a pattern. one that creates risk. Effective immediately, you'll be removed from release approvals for this quarter. Executive mentorship has been assigned. Financial consequences will follow." Mark's camera flicked on. His face was pale, jaw locked. Not angry, cornered. He looked at me finally, like he wanted to say something. An appeal, an explanation, maybe even regret. But I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The system spoke for me now. When the call ended, the tension didn't flood out. It evaporated. Quiet. Clean. No victory lap. No high fives. Just closure. I sat in the empty call window for a moment, breathing, letting the weight leave my shoulders like dust shaken from an old coat. Then I got a message. "Olivia, thank you for your patience. The coverage plan held. The system held." Then another. "Nina. Policy in plain language is protection. Thanks for modeling it." And finally, Jess. "We're printing the checklist. David says it goes on the wall in the war room." I smiled. Not because it was over, but because something new had begun. Later that afternoon, I walked back into Mom's hospital room. She was awake, smiling faintly, the painkillers blunting the worst of it. "Everything okay?" she asked. I sat beside her, took her hand. "They tried to shake the plan," I said, "but the plan didn't move." She chuckled, eyes fluttering closed again. "That's my girl." And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like the only grown-up in the room, because the system didn't just protect me, it protected everyone who came after. Everyone who said, "I need time," and heard, "You're covered." And from that day forward, it was true. Not because we hoped for it, because we built it. It didn't make a sound when it shifted. No announcement, no headline, just a new link quietly added to the policy portal. Title, Time Off and Coverage. Operational Stability. Below it, a single sentence, bold, unblinking. Time off is part of safety. Override it. Own the risk. It was Ella who told me first. She messaged me with a screenshot and a line of emojis that, for her, might as well have been fireworks. "Look familiar?" It did. Because it wasn't just policy now. It was ours. A week after the review meeting, things began to move. Not in a dramatic way. No company-wide address, no CEO apology. But the right things started showing up in the right places. It started with Mark. His removal from release approvals was immediate. No sugarcoating. No soft landing. He was shifted laterally, away from product delivery, into what was diplomatically called an execution strategy pod. He didn't lose his job, but he lost control. Finance pulled his quarterly bonus. Rebecca didn't hide it. Said out loud in the next forecast review, "Instability costs. This isn't punitive, it's mathematical." He still showed up to meetings, still made suggestions, but the room didn't orbit him anymore. When he spoke, people nodded politely, then looked elsewhere. Meanwhile, I was called into a meeting with Olivia and Ella. I expected a debrief, maybe a wrap-up. Instead, they offered me something else. "Program manager," Olivia said. "Stability and coverage, across all projects." I blinked. "You want me to own this?" Ella nodded. "You're already doing it. We just want to give you a bigger map." The promotion came with a title bump, a pay raise, and one unexpected power. My own sign-off authority on all time-off-related coverage plans across our division. I didn't say yes immediately. I asked for time. That night, I rode the red line again. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I needed to remember where it started. The bracelet caught the light in the train window again, but it looked different now. Not brighter, not tighter, just worn in, like a line that had held. By the end of the week, I said yes. The first thing I did? Framed a single sheet of paper and mounted it inside every project war room. Coverage. When someone is out. Who owns escalations? What stops if they're gone? What continues safely? Where is the handoff documented? What qualifies as a real emergency? Simple, visual, mandatory. Jess designed it. David tested it. Nina approved it. Now it lived in every room. But that wasn't the real change. The real change showed up in the numbers. The next quarterly slide deck opened with a new metric: unplanned overtime, down 22% incident volume, down 18% burnout risk, flagged twice, 0 turnover. Nobody clapped. This wasn't that kind of meeting, but Olivia smiled. Nina nodded. Rebecca whispered, "There it is." People noticed, in small ways. A junior engineer rescheduled her trip to see her sister without fear. A team lead took 2 full weeks for a hiking retreat in Colorado and didn't get a single Slack message. A director blocked 3 days for her kid's surgery and said, "Coverage is signed. It's handled," without apologizing once. And nobody tried to move them. Not because people suddenly got more empathetic. Because the rules changed, the system shifted. One evening, Jess pinged me after her shift. "Do you remember when you said rest is part of continuity?" "Yeah." "Well, it stuck." She sent a photo. Someone had written it on a sticky note and pinned it to the wall next to our war room door. In marker. All caps. Underlined. Rest is part of continuity. I didn't screenshot it. I didn't repost it. I just looked at it for a long time. Then I sent a 1-line reply. We held the line. And we had. Not because I was the strongest, but because the line itself had been made visible, made enforceable. And once people could see it, they didn't have to guess anymore. They just followed it. The second surgery was scheduled without incident. No delays, no frantic calls, no sudden asks in the hallway. Just the time, the date, and a single line in my calendar. Out of office, Carol's surgery, coverage assigned. No one questioned it. No one tried to move it. No one called. The morning of, we arrived at Northwestern early. The waiting room was exactly the same stiff chairs, same buzz of vending machines, same low murmur of pre-op nerves. But everything else had changed. Especially me. Mom squeezed my hand when they called her name. Her grip was steady this time. "You okay?" I asked. She smiled, tired but certain. "Now it's my hand, not your phone." That hit harder than I expected. She remembered. Of course she did. The first time, weeks ago, when I sat in that same chair, one hand on hers, the other on my phone, trying to stop a project from unraveling, pretending I could be 2 people at once. Not anymore. I walked her down the hall with the nurse, waited until she disappeared behind the double doors, then found a seat by the window and sat in total silence. No Slack notifications, no Outlook dings, no quiet dread that something was being moved behind my back. Just light on glass and the quiet tap of heels against tile. I opened my notebook, an old one, pages soft from use, and scribbled 1 line. I held the line. Now I let it go. It didn't mean I was done. It meant I didn't have to carry it every second of the day. The coverage worked. The policy worked, the system worked, it would hold. Because now it wasn't just mine. It belonged to the team, to the company, to everyone who once whispered, "I know I should take time, but," and now didn't have to explain. At noon, I got a message from Olivia. "Heard she's in recovery. Proud you held the line." No fanfare. Just one professional woman to another. The kind of message that doesn't land in your inbox. It lands in your chest. Then David messaged, "Everything's calm. We're good. Take the time." Jess followed, as she always did. Checklist updated. Not that you need to check it. I didn't. The afternoon drifted by like it had been waiting for me to notice it. Mom woke around 4, still groggy but smiling. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey, Mom." She reached out. I took her hand again. Nothing between us this time. No barrier of responsibility. No buzzing phone in the gap. "Thanks for staying," she whispered. I wanted to say something profound, something big, but I didn't. I just held her hand and let the quiet stretch between us like a soft blanket. That evening, when I left the hospital, the sky was still pink over the train tracks. I stepped onto the red line one last time, watching the steel blur past in quicksilver streaks. I looked down at my wrist. The red string was still there, but not for long. At the next stop, I untied it, folded it once, slipped it into my coat pocket. Not because I didn't need it, but because I no longer needed the reminder. The boundary was no longer something I wore. It was something I lived. As the train rocked toward home, I leaned back and let myself breathe. Behind me, a team working without burning out. Ahead, a life where rest is respected, where policy is plain, where leadership doesn't mean being the last one standing. It means knowing when to step away and trusting the structure to hold. Because that's the real lesson. Not revenge, not rebellion, resilience. And the red line? It holds. Always.